and that I mentioned last week. The title would be more appropriate, except titles should be shorter, but a longer title that would explain it better is A Witness of 6,000 Years Reflected in 3.5 Years. That's what we're living through. That's what we're experiencing. That's what we began to experience toward the end of December of 2008 and continue to experience those things that God is giving a reflection of in 3.5 years, especially when you understand it about His mercy upon this world for 6,000 years. Anyway, big carrot there, but anyway, it's hard sometimes to catch those things. But anyway, I'll get to that later on. This sermon today is indeed about a witness of 6,000 years and how mankind has consistently responded to God during that period of time and as mankind does now. And now how that entire period of time is indeed being reflected as a witness in this final 3.5 years, because it is about a witness before Jesus Christ returns. So as we stated last Sabbath, I was reading from the posting entitled Time is Running Out, and I want to go back to that today, back up another paragraph just to bring us back into context. And again, this all in the context, or it was in the context of what it means to be a witness. That's what this sermon is about, what it means, how it's been used through time, what God is doing and why this is summed up in a 3.5 period of time, and why God puts special emphasis on those words so that we can grasp what has been taking place indeed for 6,000 years. So let's go back to that now. I'm going to go back to that and back up another paragraph here, and then we'll continue forward in that section about time is running out. It's not the latest posting because a new one went up this morning, and I'll get to that in a moment. But backing up here, talking about in the posting there, getting down and talking about how the World War II came about and looking in prophecy about World War III and what God said would come to pass. And this is a part of discussing that. History is repeating itself. However, this time, before World War III comes on the world scene, God has declared that the United States will collapse before she can be awakened. Yes, the United States is prophesied to collapse as a nation before she can be awakened and before World War III strikes the earth. That collapse is now at the doorstep, except for a very few whom God has chosen to call into His church. No one wants to listen to such pronouncements, except for those that God is drawing. No one believes them. Instead, the truth is ridiculed, ignored, slandered, and even mocked. Been that way for 6,000 years. And some of the prophecies we're going to go through, or some of the things written by the prophets, explain that very thing. So going on here in this article, that does not change what is fast approaching and what will happen. You know, just talking about World War III. I think I even have an article here if I brought it with me. Maybe I didn't today, but it is incredible what's going on in the world out there. Reading some of the things that has been happening recently. Yeah, I thought I had those articles with me, but I don't see them. Anyway, more and more in Europe, we just don't get the news that's taking place over there in Europe unless you search for it. You have to go out and look for it. You have to look into other areas to find the news because it's not reported here in the United States. And when it is, it's very much watered down as to what's taking place. And last week, I don't know how many of you heard of Russia talking about how that the main general in Russia talking to the extent that they're being drawn into a nuclear war. That's what they say. That's what they believe. That's what they believe is taking place in Europe because of what's happening in NATO and some of the moving of missile defense systems supposedly against Iran. And they are saying if those things take place, they are definitely going to target some of those areas. That means war for them. And so depending on what stage the world is in and some of the saber rattling that sometimes takes place, but more and more people are starting to talk in those terms. And indeed, that's exactly what's going to come to pass. But going on. This time, as it's been stated, God is not going to allow the United States to be awakened as a nation. Only individuals can be awakened as they come to repentance for disobeying God. Remaining asleep is a result of the inability, or perhaps better said, the lack of will and leadership in government, business, and religion. So wherever you look, it's a choice that people make. And the reason for writing this and talking about what happened in World War II is that people felt that if you could put it at arm's length, that maybe it'll just all go away. Like I mentioned last week about Belgium and the Netherlands and some of the others who remained neutral for a time when World War II was already well underway and Germany was doing what it was doing. and they tried to remain neutral. Even after the UK and others began to talk about war and be involved in a war, they tried to remain neutral. And you think, it's coming your way. Just because you try to push it aside and try to take a neutral ground doesn't mean you can stay there. It's incredible. A willingness to be asleep. Incredible. Same thing is true in business and in religion. You listen to people are talking about the stock market and the economy and so forth, and it's just not real to them what's coming. To a few it is. Anyway, going on. Therefore, a meaningful change in the course of direction is not going to be made. The truth is that due to selfish desire to retain power and hold to the ways of greed, change will not be made. Thought it'd be good at this point here to turn over to the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 1, because it's very much about what we're living through. And then we'll go back to this section here about time is running out. So much of Ezekiel has already been fulfilled concerning the church and concerning where we're headed, what's been taking place that we've lived through since 1994, the end of it. But in chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Kebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity." Now, this is talking about a period of time around 592 BC. And it's going through here and talking about, as so many of these prophets do, about a period of time more about Judah and their captivity and what took place when they were taken to Babylon. But interesting in the story here of Ezekiel, he begins to talk about the captivity of Israel. And Israel had long before gone captive anyway. They were already taken away captive. And people who read these things and discuss these things, and supposed religious scholars go through this and don't grasp that it's talking about a future time for Israel, because they were already in captivity almost 200 years. And you think, well, they just don't understand. It's about this period of time that we're coming into, that we're now entering into. But it went on to say here, "The word of the Eternal came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kebar, and the hand of the Eternal was there upon him." So again, something that God began to give to him, that he began to see, that God began to reveal to him, that in turn was to be written down and recorded. And then jumping on down here in verse 28, it says, "As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about." And so he's describing these things of angelic things that he's seen and so forth, and things that are appearing unto him in a physical way. He went on to say, "This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Eternal. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one who spoke." And then it goes on to say then in chapter 2, "And he said to me, Son of man, stand up on your feet, and I'll speak unto you. And the Spirit entered into me when he spoke unto me, and set me upon my feet, that I heard him who spoke unto me. And he said unto me, Son of man, I send you to the children of Israel." Now he is in captivity. They're talking about a time of captivity of Judah, at a time when they were taken captivity, talking about the period of time literally, because if you go back and study some of the kings, the last few kings and what happened there, they were taken captive by Babylon at different periods of time. There were some who were supposed to remain obedient to the king in Babylon and didn't, and we'll come to that later on in this series, perhaps today. But anyway, some were taken captive, many were killed and so forth, but a lot of people were taken at different waves into Babylon, into captivity. And this is what he's talking about, this period of time. But the message isn't to Judah. Judah was the one taken captive. It's the rest of the people, Israel. And that's what God is telling him. He's saying, Son of man, I send you to the children of Israel. And so religious scholars read things like this, and to them it's a ridiculous thing because Israel was gone already.